Now the Brisa continues, but bazeh achar zeh, supposing this mocher, who's also meshubah to pay for all these three kinds of debts, supposing he sold them bazeh achar zeh, he sold them on different days. So on day 1, he sold one field. Day 2, a second field. Day 3, a third field. Kulam govim and achra. The third lokeach, who purchased on the third day, he's going to be pounced upon by the Nezikin, the Nizak, by the Isha who's collecting a ksuva, by the Balchov, the Malva who's collecting his alva. And why is that so? Rashi explains, because the first two lekuchos that bought on the first day and the second day have a right to say, Hi nachti lecha makom ligvos mimeni. In other words, there's a rule that you don't collect from Mishubadim if there are Bnei Chorin. And since we let Bnei Chorin, go collect from the Bnei Chorin. Meanwhile, the Bnei Chorin was sold, we'll go collect from the next Bnei Chorin. Until finally the last one of the Bnei Chorin is sold, they're all going to pounce upon that last karka and collect from it. Ein lo, supposing that last karka is not enough to feed all the lions that are pouncing upon it, is gova mishal fanav. Then he goes back to the previous sale that was done on the middle day. Ein lo, if that's not sufficient, gova milifnai fanav. Goes to the first day, the first sale. That's the end of the Bryce. Now the Gemara analyzes the Bryce. Machron li echad. If he sold all of them to one person, hechi dami, how did he do it? Ilem vasachas. If he sold all his 3 fields to one person simultaneously, let's say with one star, for example, so then automatically we know, because the second case in the Bryce is where he sold it to 3 different people. Hashtol is shlosha. The Bryce tells you if he sold it to 3 different people. The equal of Maimar, you could have argued that Chad Minayu Kodim, that one came first. Amrit. Kulam Nichnasu Tachsa Bailim. We say that all 3 were simultaneously lokeach, purchased those 3 fields, and therefore they have to pay each one respectively. They have to pay the Nizak, they have to pay the Isha, they have to pay the Balchov. Is Machron liechad miboy? What chidush are you adding by telling me if you sold all 3 fields to one person, if you sold 3 fields to 3 different people, and each one could claim, well, my sale came first, how much more so if you sold all 3 fields to one person? So what did the Brisa add by telling me that he sold it to one? Ela pshita bozeh achar zeh. He sold 3 fields to one person, one after the other. But I don't understand. In the case of 3 different people, 3 different buyers, you have to have sold them all simultaneously. In the case of one single buyer, you can even sell them on subsequent days, one day after the other. Umayshna, what's the difference? Shlosha. In the case of Shlosha, called Echad v'Echad, Omar La, Hinachti l'chamakom ligvos mimeni. I left Bnei Chorin that you can collect from. Hainami. So too, if there's only one buyer, I call Chad v'Chad lemele Hinachti l'chamakom ligvos mimeni. So in other words, let's say on the 3rd day he purchased Ziburus, the lowest quality karka. So if, let's say, the Nizak comes and says, well, I want to collect from the Idis, he has a right to say, well, the shibud that you have on the Idis doesn't exist because at the time that I purchased the Idis, I had left B'nai Chori in the hands of the Mocher. So basically I'm filling in for the Mocher. The Mocher could have pushed you off to Beininis or Ziburus. I have the same right. What's the case? The case was in this brisa that on the 3rd day, the 3rd sale was on Idis. So therefore, the lokech has no right to push anybody off. If that be the case, leisu kulu v'ligvu mi'idis. If the last one to be purchased was an Idis field, that means hinachti l'cham makom, the shibud would have been chal on the 3rd ground, the 3rd piece of property that was sold on the 3rd day. Let everybody pounce upon the Idis. So that even though theoretically the Isha collecting a ksuba has no right to collect Idis, And certainly the Balchov collecting from Ziburis has no right. Did I get that right? No, I'm sorry. Yeah, the Balchov collects from Beinanis, and the Ksuba gets collected from the Ziburis. They should have rights to collect from Idis. That's pretty fascinating. Now, it's normally when a woman collects a ksuba, she doesn't have rights to Idis. But if the last piece of karka to be sold on the third day was Idis, then she has the right to say that I want to collect from Idis. Oh, now we get to the punchline of the sugya. Gemara says, Mishum ta'amar lehu, this lokach has a right to say to all of them, Ishas kisu, if you'll be quiet, meaning you'll each accept. One of them will get, in this case the Nizak will get Idis, and the other one, the Balchov, will get Beinanis, and the third one, which is the Isha, shall get Ziburis, is Kidinaichu, as each one is worthy of getting, that's Kidinaichu. Shaklisu, be happy with that. Elo, but if you're not going to accept that, in other words, if you're going to press me and insist that I divvy up the Idis, which is the finest quality of the karka, amongst all of you, that means that even though the Isha has no right to anything but Zibura, she's going to claim, well, the last piece of karka to be freed from the hands of my husband, my ex, right, was Idis, therefore I have rights. No, I'm sorry, what was the last one? You're going Shalokhi, right, Shalogach Idis Bakrona, the last one was Idis. So that was the Bnei Chori. Then Hashivud is now focused on the Idis. So what does Lokeh say? V'ilo, if you're not going to be happy with collecting Ziburis, Mahadrina Shtara de Ziburis Lemore. I'm going to somehow invalidate the sale, the purchase of the Ziburis field, give that back to the seller, which is your husband, your ex. Now, Sheklisu Kulam Ziburis. All of you will have to go back to the mocher, the original seller. He's got the obligation to pay you, and you'll all end up with ziburis. In other words, it would be in your best interest to accept what's coming to you. Let's say, for example, we'll take the case of the Balchov. So the Balchov has rights to collect what? Beinanis. If the Balchov insists that I want to collect Idis, because that was the last one to go, then the Lokach is going to threaten him by saying, you know what, I'm going to take the shtar with which I purchased Ziburis, I'm going to give it back to the Mocher. Now you have only that Bnei Chori to collect from. I'm out of the picture now, because you don't collect from a Shubada when there's Bnei Chori, so you're going to have to go back to collect from the Love, in this case, the Love Mocher, and what are you going to end up with? You're going to end up with Ziburis. So you went down a Madriga. Instead of going up to Yiddish, you ended up going to... So by threatening them... Now the Rishonim all ask the question, well, what do you mean I'm going to invalidate the sale? If it was a valid sale, he can't just take the Shtar Mecher and throw it back to the seller's hands, to his possession, and then say, I'm out of here, I don't want this sale, give me back my money. You need certain... But what the Gemara means to say is that if he can find a way in which the Lokach will agree to take back the karka to make him happy, he's a good what should I say, what word am I looking for? He's a good customer, right? He's a good customer, if he's a good client. So then the Lokach will get back the shtar, and now everybody's going to just get Ziburis, because those are the Bnei Chori. So my Rebbe, Rav Soloveitchik, asked the following question. He says, is this really what the Lokach is claiming? What if the Lokach says nothing? Lokach doesn't have this whole, insight. He's not a scholar. He doesn't know, well, I can threaten you, I can this you, I could that you. We're coming to collect. And so there's halacha of taininon. What does taininon mean? That Bezdin, when a case comes in front of it, they put forward a claim to defend that person who they think is defenseless and doesn't have the ability to put forth a claim. They'll put the claim forth on his behalf. So the Rosh here in the first parak of Bava Kama says that even if the Lokach doesn't put forth the claim, Ishashkis will put it forward on his behalf. So the Rav says, what you see from this is that Ishaskis is not just a physical reality. It's not just a hechatimtza, but it's a halachic taina. It's not just a claim that the Lokeach could put forward and then he's threatening them so he'll win his way, but as the Rav called it, it's a schus al pi din. That the halach is that since the Lokeach has the possibility of returning the shtar back to the mocher, therefore it's as if the entire seder by which, the order, the sequence by which these fields were sold is completely batel, it's null and void. And as a result, all the laws of Seder Gvir that give rights to this one to collect this and so forth and so on are completely null and void. So again, normally, just to summarize, what we say is that who gets rights to the Idis again? The Nizak, right? No, the Nizak gets to Idis. But again, that's only conditional on the fact that the Idis was the last to be sold. Because again, you always collect from the last one, because that's the Bnei Chori. So you're going in a certain sequence, trying to figure out when was the Idis sold. Was it sold first, second, or third? That's called the Seder HaKnios. So the Seder HaKnios is going to undermine the halacha of Schusei Gvir in the case of which quality karka. So the Gemara says Ishaskis gives a schus, it gives a halachic power over to the Lokeach to undo, as we said, to be mavatel, the Seder HaKnios. Once the Seder HaKnios is batel, then we go back to the original din of schusei gvir. This one has a schus to be going from Idis, and this one to be Idis. So again, just to summarize, we're looking for examples of what I call mitzias or din. Is this a mitzias? It's a real, actual threat, or is it something legal? It's halachic that gives a person rights and privileges. In this case, Ishaskis is a schus gvir. All right, let's go on to the second sugya. The second sugya, we're going from Bava Kama to Bav Metzia, and it's the second source on your page, is the mitzvah of Hashavas Aveda, to return a lost object. Now, when you come and claim that this is your object, do I have to return it to you? You have to give what? A siman. You have to give a siman. You have to give a distinguishing mark on the object that indicates that it's really yours. So the Gemara in Bav Metzia, and Elu Metzias, has a case called a siman ha'asui lidaris. Meaning, if the object got lost in a public thoroughfare, then people are going to kick it around from place to place, and that siman will be marred. It will be completely indistinguishable. It'll be null and void. So the Gemara, if you take a look, records a machlokas in between Rabbah and Rav. You have it, the second major source on your page. Siman asuli dares, Rabbah Omar lo havi siman. Rabbah says that's not a siman. Now, what would be your intuitive sense if I ask you the question, why does Rabbah insist that a siman asuli dares lo havi siman? Anybody have like a kind of a knee-jerk response, like just a...
Mitzias? Because it won't be there anymore. So.
Yeah, and since the siman won't be there anymore, then the owner realizes that what are the chances of his getting it back if he can't claim a siman? The siman is gone. So, for example, we're going to talk about kikro shel nachton or kikro shel balabayis. There are different types of baked goods. Right? You can have a loaf of bread that is standard, it's professional, it's manufactured, or you could have a private loaf of bread that every balabusta, makes their own loaf of bread. So that's called a kikar shel balabayis. If it's a kikar shel balabayis, the balabayis can certainly come and say, I can identify what this bread looks like. We made it in a very specific way. But on the other hand, would I say that siman, as great of a siman as it is valid if it's in a place where people just kick it around? and it's going to get smashed. Rav Amar Havi Simon. Rav says, you know what? Maybe he's going to hold out for it. He'll be optimistic. He'll hope that he can, the Simon won't be completely destroyed, and he'll claim his object and we'll return it to him. So that's the Gemara in Beit Midrash Daf Chav Beis Amud Beis. Now the Gemara in Daf Chav Gimel Amud Aleph. You turn the Amud. Tashma, we have a proof one way or the other, and let's try to analyze who the Gemara is trying to support. Kikro shel nachtom. The Brisa says that if you have professionally manufactured breads, harei shalom. There's no simon. There's no distinguishing mark. It's manufactured. It's it's like automobiles as they come off the assembly line. They're all identical. So from the fact that the Brisa says shal nachtom harei shalom, it's implying that only shal nachtom. He could have told me a bigger chiddush. What would have been a bigger chiddush? That you can keep it. Finders keepers. Shal balabayis, if it was privately baked. But from the fact that the Brisa limits its chiddush and rules that in kikro shal nachtom, the professional bakers, then it's harei l'shalo, doesn't have a simon. The implication is ha shel balabayis. This is a typical classical diuk in the Gemara. If it would have been a professionally baked, which as we said, every baker has his or her own unique style, that makes it a simon. Chayav lahachris. He's got to make an announcement publicly in the shuls and the local synagogues or public places to say, I found something. Maybe he'll even have to say, I found a piece of bread, whatever he has to say. Then someone could come along and describe it with its identifying features, its unique features, and that's called kikar shel balabayis. So the Gemara says the following: Shel balabayis, my timer. Why do you have to go through the process of hashavas avein and hakarosa in the case of kikar shel balabayis? Came on the ispahu simon. The made the yada rifta diinshi inishu. It could be known that the baked breads of such and such a person look like this. They are special. They're unique. It's an identifying mark. Loshna b'rshus harabim, loshna b'rshus hayachid. As far as we can tell, the Brisa doesn't discuss a particular case. It's not limited or circumscribed to either b'rshus harabim or b'rshus hayachid. Meaning, even in a public thoroughfare, you would have to return kikro shel balabayis, notel umachris. You pick them up and you put up a sign and you notify the people till somebody comes to claim it. Alva, what do we see from this? Again, we're talking about kikro shel balabayis in the rishus harabim. Alma simon asili doris havi simon tiyuvta de rabba. This is a kash on Rabba. Rabba in this case should say that harei l'shalo. The Brisa should have told me even kikro shel balabayis is harei l'shalo. Amalacha Rabba hasam hainu taima. The reason why it won't get pushed around is mishum, because there's halach of ein mavirin al ha'ochlim. Does anybody know what ein mavirin al ha'ochlim means?
You don't walk by food.
Yeah, if you see food on the floor, what are you obligated to do?
Pick it up.
You have to pick it up. Because once you see the food, it's already bizui ochlim. You're not allowed to in any way waste, or I wouldn't call it waste, to denigrate. I'm looking for a different word, to mollify, to just ruin an ochel is not right. So you have to do whatever you can to protect the ochel, protect the indignity of foodstuff, and therefore you're not going to step on it. You will not step on a kikar shel balabayis or any kikar. Therefore, halachically, we could say this is a simon she'ein asui lidoretz. So again, if you lost something small, but it's inanimate, it's not an animal, it's not food, and people in the Rishus HaRabba are going to come trample on it, that would be a simon asui lidoretz, and Rabba would say harei l'shalo, you're not chayv lahachritz. But in this case of food stuff, with this halach of ein ma'avirin halachochlin, then it's a siman she'ein asui lidoretz. Here, but there's only one problem. This halach of ein ma'avirin halachochlin will explain which nation's behavior if they see this kikar, a member of that nation, a Jew. But what about a non-Jew? A non-Jew is not enjoined by this halacha. He's not impressed by ein mavir al ha'ochlin. So the Gemara says the question va'yika nachrim. We're not talking about the loss of a piece of bread in the middle of Yerushalayim necessarily. It could be it was lost right here in Toronto. So you have nachrim all over the place. And then in order to defend Rabbah, the Gemara comes up with another principle that nachrim chayshi l'kshaf. Nachrim also don't have a tendency of stepping on food for a different reason. Comes along Tosfos and he says the following. Now, the first half of this Tosfos is a little bit less relevant to us than the part that I underlined, if you notice. But let's just read it quickly. He says, on the Gemara va'ika nachrim, delo ichpas lehu, meaning that they don't care about trampling on food. This halach meim avir halochan is not, doesn't register with the nachrim. Pirush, he says, she yidrasu an nachrim, the nachrim will stamp on it, they'll stamp on it. Kodem sheyava sham shum Yisrael v'yagbiyah. Now, if a Jew got there first, he certainly wouldn't pass over this food, and since he sees it has a siman, it's not one of these, classical, identical manufactured breads, but it's a privately baked bread, he will know to pick it up and be machers it. But nevertheless, maybe the guy will get there first. And if the guy gets there first, he might even smash this piece of bread in such a way that there's no siman. V'lifroch v'im tomar. So why did the Gemara just ask a different question? V'alo nachrim shaklilei. Maybe you can say the following: that the reason why. What's the case again? We're talking about kikros shel balabayis, right? So the Gemara says va'yika nachrim. So maybe the guy is not going to trample over the food. Maybe he'll pick it up and he'll take it. It's more frequent that he would be doris. Except for the Gemara's answer about kshafim. Now let's get to the part of Tosfos that I want to emphasize. How did the Gemara even raise the question? That we should be afraid lest the guy will come along and he'll step on it. Kodem sheyavo sham shum Yisrael, before the Jew gets to it, and therefore if he pater machroza, he should be pater machroza. Adarabah, why not say the other way around? Nechush lerov Yisrael. Maybe the Jew will come first. Roim akikar. They'll see this bread. V'yagbiu. And they'll pick it up. Now, if the Jew picks it up, then it's a siman she'ein asli lidoris. So why are you assuming that the guy's going to get there first? He's going to mar the siman. Why not assume that the Jew will get there first? And therefore, the Jew picks up something, he has a mitzvah hashav savev, there's a siman on it. Because we're talking about kikros shabal abayis. V'nechush lechumra lechayvo achroza. And we should be very strict about this, in order to facilitate the mitzvah of Hashavas Aveda. We want to obligate Hachroza, because maybe, just maybe, the Jew will get there before the guy. That's the Kash of Tosfos. Now, one of the Achronim on Masechta Bava Metzia is called the Kos HaYeshuos. And if you turn to the other side of your page, what you're looking at here is the Otzer Mefarshei Talmud. We used to call it the Green Book. And he quotes the Kos HaYeshuos, who has a real problem with this Tosfos. So again, let's just review what we know. According to Rabbah, Siman ha'osli lidores lo avi siman. So now that we learn from the Brisa, Kikro shel nachtom is arelu shelo, implying that Kikro shel balabayis chayav lahachriz. Isn't that a case of Siman sha'osli lidores? So Tosfos comes along and he says, wait a minute. Yeah, it's a Siman ha'osli lidores because the guy might get there first. But maybe the Jew will get there first. Why shouldn't we be choshesh lahachmir and take the stricter view, be mechayvim and achroza, simply because maybe the Jew will get there first? Let's try to fix up this Hashavas Aveda as best as we possibly can. If Achroza is an option, let's go through the extra effort of Achroza. Says the Kos Yeshua, I don't understand what Tosfos is bothered by. Yesh Tama Harei LaRabba Kaiminon. The whole sugya is addressing the sheet of Rabbah, who holds that Simon Ha'asui Lidares, Lavi Simon means you're allowed to keep it, you don't have to announce it. V'hu, and Rabbah himself, Al Karchach, whether we like it or not, Eino Sover, he doesn't agree. Shekol Heicha She'efshol L'takin V'takninon. We should be very strict and require Achroza. Sharei Sover Simon Ha'asui Lidares, Eino Simon. V'eino Omrim Shemikom Kom Yachritz. Well, why not say the following? Maybe the Simon will get removed, it'll be obliterated. Maybe the Simon won't get obliterated. And go that extra 9 yards, extra mile, in order to put yourself out and possibly find the owner. Why is it that Rabbah holds Simon Asuli Dores, Lavi Simon? You can pocket it, you don't have to be machers it. Why? Teretz is that Rabbah's shita is that we don't look about what are the chances of this happening or that happening. And we don't ask the finder to go that extra mile and try to be machmir in order to be metakein, so that possibly through the sakroza maybe we'll be able to return the object to its rightful owner. We don't say that according to Rabbah. So this whole question of Tosfos, that maybe the guy will take it before the Jew gets it, right, is an invalid question. And the Gemara and Tosfos are addressing the sheet of Rabbah. So again, the Gemara says you should be able, according to Rabbah, you should be able to keep kikros shel balabayis. Why? Because the goyim will stamp on it, and therefore that makes it into siman asili dares. Fractosis. Why don't we assume that maybe the Yisrael will get there first before the Nachri gets there? But that's not a valid question. If you hold Simon Asili Dars Glavi Simon, like Rabbah holds, then what you're basically formulating is this halacha that you have a right to assume it's not a Simon. And if it's not a Simon, take it for yourself. That's the kasha of the Kos HaYeshuos. So basically the Kos HaYeshuos is asking a kasha on a kasha. Notice he doesn't understand the premise of Tosfos' question. Okay, now there's a piece in here where he discusses the possibility, maybe Tosfos is really asking a kash on Rabbah himself, that Rabbah himself should in general say, but that he rejects that. So what's his answer? If you drop down about 2 lines, so Kosav L'taretz, She'al Rabbah ein lahakshas. Certainly on Rabbah himself there's no kasha. Maybe Rabbah's reasoning goes as follows. Mishum shachzaras haveda deisima nilmad misimla in the parish of Hashavas Aveda in Parish Kiteitzei. It says simla. Simla is a garment. V'tzarach dafka simon sheina osli dars kamo simla. The Torah in the parish of Simla is setting up the standards as to what qualifies as a simon. Simla has a simon, whether it's the color or the size or the make or the shape or the design, whatever the simon it might be. But the case of simon and Simla is eino asli dares. Nobody goes stomping on clothing. So therefore Simla sets up the standard and the paradigm for what a simon is. And it has to be a simon she'eino asli dares. What bothers Tosfos? Achreisha hiksha hareyesh nachrim shedarsim. The Gemara wants to say that the simon in the case of kikros shel balabais is asli lidares because of the goyim. Now we have a problem. Well, what's the Gemara's question? Uminat Torah simon shel kikros nechshav eino asli lidares. If the Torah itself would analyze the case of these kikros, how would it classify the simon of the kikros? It's eino asli dares, and therefore you should be chayv and achroza. Why is it eino asli dares? It's exactly like Simla. And why is it exactly like Simla? Kevan di asur lidros al ochlin. Because halachically, we are enjoined from being dores on ochlin. We're not allowed to do that. And therefore the halach itself recognizes this simon as dubya de Simla. It's exactly like Simla. It's ein asur lidores. Afal pisha goyim einom choshim lazeh v'darsim alav. So what was the basis? What underlies the Gemara's kasha? Va'ika nachrim. Who cares if they're a nachrim? It's a simon she'eno asli lidores. If it's eno asli lidores, then you should be chayv and achrosa, and everything's wonderful. Our diuk from the Brisa works out very well according to Rabbah. And what makes it eno asli lidores? Despite the fact that the goyim will be dores on it. Can you help me out over here? What makes this simon, in the case of kikros, b'shus rabim, eno asli lidores? It's food, and therefore you're not allowed to be doris on it. Ein ma'avir al ochlin. So if we're trying to set up a standard of what simon is, by comparing it to the paradigm of simon, what's the paradigm of simon in the parasha of Hashavas Aveda? Simla. If it's comparable to Simla, then the Torah has to compare it to Simla because you're not allowed to be doris on the ochlin. And then the Gemara turns around and says, wait a minute, you should be able to pocket it, even according to Rabbah. Why? It's a simon asli doris because the goyim will give you. Who cares about the goyim? We're trying to define in abstract terms whether or not this object fits the bill of Simla. And if it does, it does. Don't tell me that Nachrim are doing it. So he says, Lozeh hikshu im mitach chashash drisa misyayesh. Beautiful. He says the Kos HaYeshus, there's another factor, another contributing factor that could exempt you from the mitzvah of Hashavas Aveda. And what is that? Yush. Even if you have a simon she'eno asui lidares, you still have to ask another question. Are the Bailam going to be misyayish? Are they going to think that we won't have a chance in a million to get back our object? So the Gemara says, well, you could nachrim. What are you telling me that kikros shabal bais chayv lahachriz because it's a simon she'eno asui lidares it's dumya dissimla? Why? Because they ain't mavir al ochlin. But the Bailam themselves psychologically will be misyayish. They'll give up hope because they realize that there's so many goyim walking around that probably the guy is going to get there first and he'll obliterate the simon. Says the Kos HaYeshuos. Now I understand Tosfos' kasha. Tosfos is saying that if the Gemara insists that even Rabbah would say in a simon she'eno asli lidores, but there's yeush, and that's what underlies the Gemara's kasha when it asks va'ika nachrim. If that be the case, the Gemara is predicating its argument even within the context of Rabbah on yeush. Why should we assume there's yeush? Let's go that extra 9 miles, the extra 9 yards, I don't know, whatever you call it, in order to guarantee the possibility that maybe we'll be able to return this object. Let's not leave any leaf, even a maple leaf, unturned and try the best we can to return the object. So what do? We'll be machriz it. That's what Tosfos. You see, before the Gemara asked the kasha, well, you could nachrim, we thought that there's only one factor that determines Hashavas Aveda or not. Are you obligated to Hashavas Aveda? Are you exempt from Hashavas Aveda? The answer depends on Dumya, dissimla. Does it fit your paradigm for Simla? If the Torah would equate it to Simla, then you're chayv lachris. If it's not equatable to Simla, it's something that's also lidores, then you're potter. And that's it. So we were of the impression that according to Rabbah, if you have a simon she'eno asli lidores, because ein mavir al ochlin, then you're chayv la'achris. But the Gemara says, no, I'm not happy with that. Because even if it's a simon she'eno asli lidores, there's another factor that might contribute to alleviating his responsibility to be machriz, namely what? Yeush. If there's another factor, Yeush. And that's why the Gemara is attacking Rabbah. Because wait a minute, Rabbah has to agree that there's Yeush because of the Nachrim? So maybe Rava would say, within the context of Yehush, let's be machmir, let's be very, very careful about this. Maybe there's no Yehush. And let's go ahead and be machers. So what we get from this whole discussion is the following. There are two elements in Hashavas Aveda. One I call a din, and one I call a mitzius or a hekatimtza. Rabba's description or standard of a siman asli doris, a siman she'eno asli doris, that's a din. That's already halacha. You see that the Kosei Yeshua says that what will determine it is ein mavir al-ochlin. Ein mavir al-ochlin is a din. In other words, siman asli doris is a chalushem. It's a halachic entity. It undermines the siman because it's not dumya desimla. Flip side, if it is dumya desimla, it has a chalushem siman. That's exactly that the aveda of simla the Torah describes, that you have to do whatever you can to return it. There is another halacha. The second halacha has nothing to do with halachic reality, but rather with physical reality, with psychology. What is the amcha? What are the population of people, any of whom might be the loser of this object? What are they thinking? Are they expected to get back their object? Or do they think, all right, there's a sima, but I won't be able to give that sima because it's going to get obliterated by the Rov Nachrin? That's already a different halacha. That already reflects the mitzius of Yehush. Good? Okay. So let's go back to our page. And you'll see on the fourth paragraph, okay? Now, I don't have for you all the Maramakomos. I just want to show you the Gemara in Tmura. This is a world-class, world-famous Gemara in Tmura. And the Tosfos and the Nesivis get involved with this sugya. This is the sugya called the Ovid Lo Mahani. Have you ever heard of it? If the Torah tells you you're not allowed to do X, and you went ahead and did it, is that valid? Again, you'll get 39 lashes for doing it, but is it valid? So take a look inside. The Gemara says, Amar Abai Kol Milsa, the Amar Achman Alosa Avid. If the Torah says don't do it, I Avid Mahani. If you went and did it, it's valid. So, for example, on the Shemitah, the seventh year in the cycle of 7, you're not allowed to sell your possessions, but your property, your sada. You went ahead and you sold it. So Abai says, even though the Torah told you not to sell it, you sold it, it's valid. If you're going to tell me that at the end of the day the sale is invalid, am I lucky? That's very paradoxical that you give him malchus for violating the Torah law when nothing happened. The sale that he tried to precipitate didn't register. And Rava says no. Rava Amar Lo Mahani Midi V'Haideloki Mishum Di'Ovra Memra Drachmonahu. You're right. You have a question, Abai. Why do I get malchus if the Torah doesn't recognize the validity of this action? The answer is the Torah says don't do it. And if you do it, it's not going to even be valid. But you're going to get malchus. Why? Mishum Di'Ovra Memra Drachmona. Because you attempted to undermine the Torah law. So this will be relevant. For example, let's say a Kohen is Makadesh a Grusha. Do we recognize that Kedushin or do we not? According to Abai, we recognize the Kedushin, and it's obvious. And because he created this Ishus, this Kedushin relationship, that's why he's going to get Malchus. According to Rava, the Torah is saying this is against our will, the will of the Torah. Therefore, we're not going to recognize the validity of this action. So comes along Tosfos, and he wants to know the following. What happens if I shecht a korban Pesach on Erev Pesach and I have chametz in my rishus? If I possess chametz and I shecht a korban Pesach, that's a violation of the law of lo sishchat chametz al dam zivchi. Well, okay, fine. He went ahead and he violated that law, and we'll give him 39 malchus. But what's the status of the shechita? Is the shechita a valid shechita? Can we eat from it? Can we not eat from it? So Tosfos says, in this case, Rava would simply apply his universal rule. What was Rava's universal rule? What happens whenever the Torah says, don't do it? It's not valid. So therefore, If he shechted the carbon pesach al chametz, we apply the principle of the Ovid lo mahani. Good, lo mahani. The shechita is not a good shechita. Comes along the Nesivis and he asks the following question: supposing a person shechts an animal on Shabbos, so he violated the Torah law because shechita is one of the 39 categories of malacha. But would there be a hechsher shechita? Is the shechita kshera? So the Gemara says, and in this case, the shechita is a shechita kshera. We might not be allowed to eat it for different reasons. You know, there's a gzeira that you can't be nene from Melecha Shabbos. Okay, but there are all sorts of limitations to that gzeira. It's only to Rabbana. But on the fundamental level, if you ask me, did his shechita on Shabbos, Rachmana litzlan, let's say he did it b'shogeg, right? But did his shechita register as a shechita, or is it an avela now? The answer is the shechita is a shechita kshera. What happened to Rava's rule of Kol Milsa, the Amar Achmana lo Sabed, the Ovid lo Mahani, which therefore invalidates and undermines the shechita of a carbon Pesach Erev Pesach, v'yesh lo chametz b'rshuso, lo sishchad al chametz dam zivchi. What's the difference, asking the Nesivis, between these two cases? They seem identical. One is a violation of the Isur shechita as a result of the chametz in his rishus when he shechs the carbon pesach. The other is a violation of the shechita on Shabbos as one of the 39 malachas. Why is it in the case of carbon pesach, Tosa says the shechita is invalid, but in the case of Shabbos we don't apply the principle of Yovid Lo Mahani and the shechita is valid? That was the Nesivis' question. So the Nesivis says the following. I'll read it to you inside. Ha'isur hu dafka, the Isur of carbon pesach, of lo sishchad al chametz dam zivchi, hu dafka b'shchita kshera v'lo b'nechira. The Isur is to create this shchita, to create the chalos shchita. You want to create a hechsher shchita, the Torah says not to do it? If that's the exact identity of the Isur, then the Torah is saying, I'm speaking at the Torah, I'm putting my foot down. I'm not going to accept that shechita. And therefore, lo mahani. Because the entire thrust of the Isur is the creation of a shechita kshera. To create a chalos shechita, a shachut. That's what the Torah says is forbidden. That's against the will of Almighty God. And therefore, your attempt at creating this hechsher shechita is completely null and void. But in the case of Shabbos, says the Nesivis, Masha Enke b'shchita b'Shabbos, Ein dini Yovid Lo Mahani. We don't apply the principle of Rava, Yovid Lo Mahani. The shchita is a shchita kshera. Again, you'll have to worry about the Easter Shabbos until being nenemi Melech Shabbos. Mishum delo mesaknin ha'Isra al yidei bittul shchita. What are you going to do? You are going to invalidate the shchita. Is that going to help you? Is that going to undo the avera that he tried to do? Are you looking him in the eye and saying, ha ha ha, what a joke? Your avera was foiled. It was impossible. It was unsuccessful. Ki ha'isur, says the Nesivis, nasa b'maisa shchita. Beautiful. He says the following, that in the case of shechita on Shabbos, it's the reality, it's the physical mitzius of shechita that the Torah prohibits. Has nothing to do with whether shechita is valid or not valid. And if he kills the animal without a valid shechita, it's also a netilas neshama. It's also a chil Shabbos, a desecration of that particular malacha. So what are you going to do? You're going to invalidate a shechita? What Rava does is, he wants to say, I'ovid lo mahani. Why? Because the Torah wants to say, I'm not going to let you achieve a goal, namely in this case hechsher shechita, which I find unacceptable, which is repulsive. So when the Isur lies in the result of the Maisa, and this goes back to another Chakir, it's so beautiful because this is really an overlap of two tools. Two tools. We have the tool of Maisa and Totzasa Maisa. The subcategory, if you remember, was Maisa and Chalosa Maisa. And now we have a tool of Din and Metzias. Both of these tools converge in this Nesivis. It's a very, very sophisticated approach to the whole world of Lamdisha thinking. Because on the one hand, what the Nesivus is doing is he's separating between the Isur Shchita on Shabbos and the Isur Shchita of Korban Pesach al Chametz. In the case of the Isur Shchita on Shabbos, is the Maisa that Totzas HaMaisa the Torah finds intolerable. Correct, it's the Maisa. And in the case of Shchita of Korban Pesach, what does the Torah find abominable, unacceptable? The Chalos, the Hechsher Shchita, the result of the Maisa. And now the Nesivus plugs in our tool. It's a difference in reality of Metzius and Din. In the case of Shabbos, it's just simply the reality of taking the neshama of the animal, of killing the animal, that constitutes a violation, a desecration of the Shabbos. Therefore, what do you gain by saying, oh, we object to the Hechsher Shtita? Who cares about the Hechsher Shtita? It's not going to save you one iota. But in the case of Shchita of Korban Pesach, Erev Shabbos on Al Chametz, what the Torah is trying to convey is that I don't want this kind of Shchita going on. I don't want the Korban Pesach to be shechted, and then you're going to sit down and eat the Korban Pesach when the Korban Pesach was shechted while you had Chametz around. That's not acceptable. So where the Isa says the Nesivus and explained this is the Hechsher Shchita, the Chalos Shchita, the halachic status, not the reality of killing the animal. Then the Torah is going to get up according to Rav and say, I object. I don't want this Hechsher Shchita. And he avid lo mahani. If you take a look at the Gemara Bava Kama, you'll see something very, very strange. The Gemara goes back historically to the Takana of Kriyas HaTorah B'Tzibur, and this was a partially done by Moshe Rabbeinu, who was instituted at the time of Ezra. Ezra Institute that we read on Mondays and Thursdays. Why did Ezra institute Mondays and Thursdays? So what's the maximum number of days that will pass before there's a public reading of the Torah? You've got Monday, you've got Thursday, and you've got Shabbos, correct?
2 days.
Yeah, so it's only 2 days. It's Tuesday and Wednesday. But you read the Torah on Monday, you'll read it again on Thursday, you'll read it again on Shabbos, and then following on Monday. So in every case, there's only 1 day of a difference between one Kriya and the next, right? From Shabbos to Monday is 1 day. From Thursday to Shabbos is 1 day. From Shabbos to Monday is 1 day. In the case of from Monday to Thursday, it's 2 days. But never 3 days. Why never 3 days? Because we learned in a brisa that's on the second line of your sheet. The Jews came out of Egypt and they went 3 days and they couldn't find water. The water here is an allusion to Torah. Nilu means they got weak. They got fatigued. They were so weak because they didn't have mayim. What's mayim? Torah. How could you go 3 days without Torah? Omdu neviim shebeinayim. V'tiknu lem shiu korim b'Shabbos. Mafsikim v'yechad b'Shabbos. Korim b'sheni. Mafsikim b'sheni b'shli u'revi. V'korim b'chamisha sivav Shabbos. K'dei shel yelchu gimel yomim v'lo Torah. Now wait a minute. This brisa seems to indicate that the reason for this takana was not the mitzvah of Talmud Torah, but it was the fact that they went 3 days without Torah, and they were fatigued. They were dry. They were thirsty. And the Rav Zichron DOV asked the following question. He says, this Vayelchu Shlosh Yom V'lo Mayim is before the Torah was given. So what are you telling me? They established the reading of the Torah for the sake of people who didn't even have the obligation to study Torah because there was no Torah. So I understand within the context of the mitzvah of Talmud Torah, V'shinantam lefanecha, you want to say that there should be a public reading of the Torah to fulfill this mitzvah within a 3-day period, not to let 3 days go by. But you're quoting a pasuk which has nothing to do with the mitzvah of Talmud Torah. It couldn't possibly have anything to do with the mitzvah of Talmud Torah. So the Rav said, no, the takana of Kriyas HaTorah B'Tzibur fundamentally is not motivated by Talmud Torah. The Machayev is not mitzvah Talmud Torah. The Machayev is Chesed. Simply Chesed for someone, in this case the Jewish soul, that's longing, that's craving, that's thirsty for Torah. We cannot possibly let 3 days go by without the study of Torah. So again, if I ask you, what generates the mitzvah Kriyas HaTorah B'tzibur? Is it a physical reality, or we'll call it a spiritual, psychological reality, or is it a halachic requirement? Here, to our surprise, the Machayev is not the mitzvah of Talmud Torah. Couldn't be. They couldn't have had the mitzvah if that wasn't given yet, but rather the physical, psychological reality of nilu, of their thirst for Torah. Here's a famous Gemara in Makis, and we'll conclude with that because it's getting late. The Gemara Daf Vav. Who remembers the sugya of Nimtza Echemem Karv Apostle? Does that remind you of anything? Can you tell me over what we derive? The Torah says 2 Eidim, 3 Eidim. Why did you have to say 2 and 3 to equate 3 to 2? Then if what? Do you not remember if you have 3 Eidim and you find out one of them is what? Karv Apostle. Then what happens to the other Eidim? Even though you have enough, all you need is 2. So drop the one that's Karv Apostle and you still have 2. No. Nimtza Echemem Karv Apostle is we throw out. So imagine a situation where Ruvain murders Shimon in the presence of Levi and Yehuda. If Levi and Yehuda are Ksherei Edus, well, what's the status of Ruvain and Shimon? Now, Shimon is already dead, but Ruvain certainly is still alive. He too witnessed the crime. In fact, he initiated the crime. So the Gemara asks this question. The Gemara says, okay, the Gemara thinks that the Harug saw the knife as it went into him, but the Gemara says, no, he killed him from behind. Then the Gemara says, Horeg Yatzil, let the Horeg, the murderer. The same thing the Gemara asked by Nirva, I'm not going through that now. Ishtik. Kiyosel Kami de Rava, yes, the same kasha to Rava, Amalei, Yakum Davar. So here the Gemara differentiates between an aid and what we call a baldover. Baldover means the litigants or the players on the field or on the stage. You have the spectators who come to watch and witness, and you have the actors themselves. So Reuven killed Shimon. Those are the actors of the play. They don't serve as aidim because b'makayim davar kosim medaber. So here we can raise the following question. What's the status of a baldover? Is a baldover an aid, but he's puzzled, because they know the maid al atzmo, or he's not an aid at all? An aid physically, in the reality of it, has to be someone who's watching, he's a spectator, it can't be the one who's on stage. From the fact that the Gemara says that the normal universal principle of Nimtza Echemem Karv Apostle doesn't apply to the Makaimei Davar, it only applies to the Makaimei Davar, but not to the Osei Davar, not to the Balei Dvarim, not to the Rotzeach or to the Nirtzach. You see that when the Gemara is saying that if you're not from the Makaimei Davar, but rather the Osei Davar, then you're not part of the Eidus, what the Gemara is really establishing is that you're not an aid at all. You can't call someone a witness or a spectator if he's not a spectator, but he's part of the action. So this again, I think, is another example of this chakira between din and mitzvahs. Okay then? All right, thank you very much, and we'll stop here.